Okay, looks like we're right at 10 o'clock, so let's get started. I'll call the meeting to order. And are we still alone in our meeting? No public attendees?
Correct, no members for the public.
Okay, great, thank you. So per the request of General Manager Pruitt, we will start out with personnel old business closed captioning of meetings. And I'm looking forward to the presentation.
Yeah, so I don't know that we're necessarily going to have a presentation, but just wanted the committee members to know that we are running a demo of the closed captioning. So maybe just to walk you through it, and Chris, you can help me too. So we have the Verbit people with us today. If you go to the bottom of your screen, there's right in the middle, there's a little box that says live transcript. Can you see that?
Yep.
If you click on that, I think the top choice, if you click that, it brings up the closed caption. So if you, maybe I'll pause to make sure you can enable it and it's working on your screen. And if it's not, you've exhausted my technical knowledge, and I'll have to defer to Chris to help walk you through it. Is it working?
You know, it's working. And you know what it also has is a delayed bleep feature, it looks like, because it's a few seconds behind.
It is.
When you're talking. So if we ever had to bleep somebody out, I guess we could do that and we'd get a heads up.
Yeah, I think there's some other features on that drop down. You can have it show the ongoing transcript. Because right now, if you just pick the top option, it just shows the most recent. If you click one of the other functions on the right side of your screen, it'll show kind of a running commentary of what's going on in the meeting. And I'm not asking you to do that, just kind of pointing that out. I don't know how this is going to look on the video. Not that the closed captioning is super important for the video. It's probably more important for the live, but I assume this gets recorded just like the rest of the meeting gets recorded for both audio or for the video portion of things. Chris, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Actually, I would recommend go ahead and open the transcript, and you can see it crawl across the right side of your screen.
Mm-hmm.
I've got that open, and it seems like this would be a great feature to help with the minutes production. And I'm wondering if there is a way to save the transcript after the meeting.
There is, yes. We can actually download it as a text file. We can also order a transcript as well for like YouTube videos, right? So we can actually attach it to our YouTube account and say, hey, we want to get the transcript for this YouTube video. So even ones in the past, they can go through and they can type it all out and get it all squared away. Because YouTube does have closed captioning built in, but it's not great. This would be much more accurate. I don't believe this saves in the current video that we have that we're currently recording, but we can order them after the fact. And then same thing for the minutes, right? So we can download just a text file, and then Diane and Ann would have that, and that should help a lot with meeting notes and everything. So
would that be helpful? Would that be helpful for the minute production?
Yeah, I guess I'll look to Diane and Ann for that. Diane, any thoughts?
Hello.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see how this is going to look like for the finance committee meeting, where Wes is throwing out all these numbers and stuff. I mean, you know, I would be interested in looking at it to see if it would help, but we don't need everything word for word kind of thing. So that's my 2 cents.
Diane, any thoughts on that? You're muted, Diane, if you're trying to talk.
I know. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm not working right at the moment.
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
yeah, I guess my advice is we're trying it today. We'll probably demo it at an upcoming board meeting, maybe as soon as this weekend or this Wednesday. And then staff will we'll look at how it looks and look at what options and what benefits it has, and we'll evaluate it, maybe report back to the P3 committee at a future meeting date. But for now, it's up and running, and look at it from time to time. And it seems to track things pretty well. And, you know, as I watch it, it seems to be capturing everything. We haven't said anything like extensive use of numbers or acronyms, things like that. So I'll be curious as to what it does for things like that.
So from what I understand, Glenn, there's kind of two things happening. You have kind of an automatic recording and an AI kind of figuring out what you're saying, as well as an actual person kind of going over it and correcting anything, any grammar, any names, any specific words. So that's kind of the delay. The majority of it is AI, and then they're kind of just verifying and correcting as needed. So then it kind of comes in a few seconds later.
Yeah, thank you. And it's my understanding that we can provide the company with a list of our common acronyms, and that would help them as they kind of monitor the transcript servicing, that they can know what our acronyms are and produce better minutes from that way.
Yeah, and for instance, I actually uploaded the agenda for this meeting. So if there's anything in there specifically that we're going to be talking about, they kind of have those words now. If we wanted to get more detailed, we could add individual words and phrases. We can do that as well.
So let me try an experiment and say Director Jim Pennock and Director Tiffany Boyd Hodgson and see how well it handles that.
Seem to do okay there.
It's pretty good.
I missed Jim's last
Kinda.
name.
Yeah, it just said Jim. So
Mhm.
yeah, so there's those things we'll look through.
And that's where we can order it. We can actually order the transcripts, and then they go through and really clean it up.
So
You know,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess I think what would be helpful for me to know, and we've talked about this before, is, you know, we want to make sure that we have a service that provides, you know, adequate capturing for the public to be able to participate. But we also have to talk about the cost, and we have to balance, you know, the services that we need, you know, because I imagine there's like a high end price with the person that's actually helping do the transcript online as we speak, and, you know, making the transcripts and things like that. And then there's probably a middle of the road, and then there's probably a lower budget option. So I don't feel like I have a proposal with those options and what is included. And I think we would definitely need to know that before we could make any kind of decision, as well as sort of the competency of the AI and what the capturing looks like.
Yeah, and I believe that's kind of what we're doing right now, right? We want to go through a full meeting, see what we get, see what our options are as far as how clear everything is, what the price is going to be if we wanted to order those full transcriptions after the fact. If we connect it to YouTube, hey, how much is it going to cost per YouTube video? What's the difference between what, you know, kind of Zoom does on its own versus what Verbit is offering? And same thing with YouTube is offering versus what Verbit is going to give us. And if there's any actual, you know, return on value, I guess, for Ann and Diane.
Yeah, I think that's important too. So then I guess the next steps for this is that, you know, for this particular item is that we'll continue with the meeting, and then we can evaluate the way that it was captured. And then the next time we talk about this, whether it's the next meeting, the P3 committee, or at a regular board meeting, we will have all the information available to us to help us make the decision about the cost element. Right?
Yep.
Yes.
And Jonathan, did I hear you say before the meeting that we may be trying this at an upcoming board meeting?
I've scheduled it for the board meeting already. We do not have to use it. I can cancel it if we need to. But there is a difference in cost between the amount of time that you give for booking a meeting. So if you have like 72 business hours versus 48 versus 24, right? So the cost goes up the less time you give them to get somebody in place to be able to do the closed captioning. So I wanted to go ahead and book it, and that way we knew we had it already. And then if we don't use it, then we don't use it, and we just cancel that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would suggest we go ahead and do it just as a test, trying several different meeting formats, and then it'll help our evaluation.
That was my idea as well.
Thank you. That sounds like a great plan.
Nice one. We're
That's-
all on the same page.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you for moving that to the top of the agenda. I thought it was worth moving to the front so we all knew what we were, the demo that we're running today. Ready to move to the next item?
I think so.
Okay, so that's the recruitment for development services engineer. I'm going to turn that over to Bridget, and you can kind of give us an update.
So we do have someone in background checks. The department selected someone for the underfilled position. James had come to a meeting before to let you guys know that we were going to go out for 2 different positions. One was senior engineer, one was development services supervisor. And he did select someone for the development services supervisor position. I think the plan right now is once we have all of the pre-employment stuff back, as far as the background check, to issue a conditional offer. That conditional offer is going to be contingent on the full board approving the retitle of the development services senior engineer to development services supervisor. And once that happens, we'll be able to move forward.
And we had made an offer for the senior position, but the selected candidate rejected the offer.
Correct,
So
yeah.
we went to the second contestant and offered it at a lower level based on the qualifications of the person.
So just so I can make sure that I'm tracking, and Bridget, sometimes your voice is kind of echoey in where you are, so I'm not sure I caught
Sorry.
everything. But so there was an offer made for the senior level position. That didn't quite work out. So we went to the next level person. That person had less experience or a lower qualification. And what is the title that they are going to be offered at?
Development services supervisor.
Okay. And there's just one position, right? It's
Correct.
just that position. Okay, thank you. And then that'll go to the full board for evaluation and approval.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, great work. It sounds like that's well on its way to being filled then. I know that that's a
Moving
really
along.
important position. So great work. Thank you. Anything
right.
else on that?
No,
Item?
that's it for that item.
Okay, great.
So the next item is titled Workplace Safety Training Update. And before we jump into it, maybe just get some clarity from you, Director Boyd Hodgson. Was that more geared towards the board required training?
Yeah, I think, we've talked a couple of times about workplace safety training for our employees. I don't have a full understanding of what I would like for the employees to undergo some kind of workplace training safety, but we don't have a plan for that. So for now, yes, it is, what is the list, and I know you're going to provide it to us as needed, or as you get it, but what are the trainings that are upcoming so that we can plan, if you have any information on that?
For the board members specifically, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so there's really 2 that are required by all board members by state law, and they're required every 2 years. One is the sexual harassment prevention training it was promulgated by AB 1825. And both of our new board members, which happen to be our 2 committee members, both of you, have completed that class. It was back on April 20th, so you've satisfied that requirement. The other requirement is it's called ethics training, and that's AB 1234. It's a very similar in terms of the duration. It's a 2-hour class, can be done virtually and online. Sometimes there are sessions that are predetermined and pre-scheduled, and you just join at the time, similar to the sexual harassment prevention. It's on a particular date and time. There's also on-demand series from certain groups, and like California Special Districts Association, CSDA, has an on-demand series, so you can basically do it whenever you want. So I just want to make sure both of you are aware that there is an ethics training requirement, and we're happy to help you in whatever way. We can just forward you the website, and you can sign up yourself, or you can tell us when would be a good time, date and time, and we can sign you up for it. But we just need a little feedback from you on that. And I believe it has to be done within 6 months of taking office. So by early June, you'd have to have it done. It's only a 2-hour class and you have over a month to do it. So whatever way, I guess I would suggest if you want to coordinate with Diane, that may be a good way to do it. And then she could sign you up. And if you sign up yourself, then you're going to have to pay for it and get reimbursed. It's just another level of complexity. We're happy to do that, take that part of the equation out and sign you up directly. But we certainly need to know when would be a good time for you to do it. So if you want to coordinate with Diane, that would probably be best on that.
Okay.
And then maybe just a few more words on that. So that's state mandated training for elected officials, those 2 classes. There's a lot of other things that are more choices, and depending on what levels of accomplishment we want to have. So the California Special Districts Association, they have these they call them the districts of distinction. And they're trying to separate out those districts that really show a commitment to good governance as compared to agencies that may not. So this group, they specify certain classes and training requirements that would be needed to reach different levels of the district of distinction. That's a little bit more complicated. There's some easy ways to do that, and there's some other ways that you can cobble together your requirements. One easy way to do it, and I say easy because it's kind of like one-stop shopping, but you can attend what's called the Special District Leadership Academy, and that's an annual conference. And this year, it's proposed to be held in Lake Tahoe from September 26th through 29th. Assuming the COVID situation continues to improve and they have conferences in person, that would be a good way to do it. Attend the conference. It's a 3 or 4 day conference. You can take all the classes on governance, setting direction and community leadership, the board's role in human resources, the board's role in finance and fiscal accountability, things like that. Really good one-stop shopping, good way to get it done. If the boards, if the new members don't want to attend something like that, then there's ways to do all of these things remotely and online by taking little sessions. There's a certain number of hour requirements, and I think it's like 6 to 10 hours. I can't remember the exact number of training required, certain number of classes, certain types of classes you have to take, and we can help you get there. We probably need to have a discussion at the board level to see what level of district of distinction the board collectively would like us to get to. And that will determine the amount of classes, the amount of training that each board member and the executive management would have to take. Obviously, as you go to higher levels, more training is required by more people. There's some base levels of district of distinction, and then it goes silver, gold, and platinum level. So if we want to go all the way to platinum level, the requirements are significantly greater. So it's not easy to put together a matrix that says, here's the training that's required, because I don't know what we're trying to get to. There are some certain things like governance foundations, which would be, I think, helpful for the board members to take regardless of whether we're going for district of distinction. And we could put something together that would show the board how to obtain that governance foundation. And then we can, it's choice points from that point forward. So keep those things in mind. If whether we go for the district of distinction or not, board members may want to attend the Special District Leadership Academy. It's a really good opportunity to learn a lot about governance and how to run the special district organization. So I'll take a pause right there and see if that creates any questions from either of the committee members.
Remind me what the level of distinction the district currently has, please.
Chris, do you remember what we have right now?
I'm pretty sure we were at the silver level, I believe, the last time we did it.
Yeah, and I think
And
there's something you have to do to renew. So just because you get the silver doesn't mean you remain at silver forever. There's some ongoing training, ongoing education. And I think there's certain things we have to do by the end of June. I think, Chris, is that right? June 30th. We have to do some things about our transparency certifications and a few other things, some training opportunities. So from a staff perspective, we're making sure we do everything we need to do to keep that silver level of district of distinction. But if the board wanted to progress to either gold or platinum, then there's a whole host of other things that have to be done by various members of the organization.
Not by the end of June.
No,
think?
that's
Okay.
purely a choice point to the board. If you want to progress, it'd be good to get the
Okay.
board directions to where we want to go. Then staff could meet with CSDA and their special district leadership foundation, which is kind of their education arm. And we can figure out a plan on how to get us there. And us is,
Okay.
different things. Newer board members will require more training, obviously. Existing or returning board members will have already satisfied certain things, and the general manager has to do certain things. For example, if we want to get all the way to the platinum, I have to become a certified general manager, basically. And that's more involved than any of the other trainings. So, and certainly happy to do that, but I want to make sure the board understands that there's a commitment, time and money and all those things. So if the committee thinks it's a good idea, we can maybe agendize an item at an upcoming board meeting to see where do we want to go with this. We can maybe explain where we're at, what it would take to stay where we're at, and what it would take to move to the next step to see that everybody's committed. So for example, if you're a silver level, only the majority of the board has to reach a certain level. If you want to get to the gold, all of the board members and the general manager have to get to a certain level. If you want to get to platinum, then there's extra things on top of that. So each step above silver really requires the commitment of the entire organization, not just parts of.
Sure,
Is there
that
any
makes
benefit?
sense.
I mean, is there any benefits to going from silver to gold to platinum as far as, I mean, it sounds like it could be quite a bit of cost and commitment. I mean, what's the benefits in doing that?
I don't know all
Besides
of
just
them.
the
I
distinction.
would say it kind of bragging rights, to
Yeah.
put it kind of plainly. It's a nice thing to say, hey, we're a platinum level or gold level district of distinction. I don't know that it gets you better insurance rates or anything like that. I'm not aware of anything like that. It's really just something that's nice to say. Well, the board members can brag about it, staff can promote it through the website and things like that. And it is a nice thing to have. But it is then that's the balance, right? Is it worth the commitment of time and money to get to that level? And then every time we get any turnover on the board, we're back, right? You now have you don't have your all of the board members. You have to go back and have those newer board members brought forward, and the current returning board members have to get recertified continuously on certain levels. And everything that we're talking about now is different than the state mandated ethics and sexual harassment prevention. So those are given. Those two you have to get those done every 2 years. That's the law. All the other things are kind of choice points.
So it sounds like maybe the full board has to discuss this. So would you be comfortable asking President Sanella to add this to the agenda? I guess are we too late for this?
Yeah, it's too
yeah,
late.
so-
It's too late for Wednesday, but we can shoot for the 19th. And
Okay.
just have it agendize it for just a discussion and get board direction. And it'd be a nice out. And we certainly need to make sure that all 5 board members are at that board meeting because it's a commitment on all 5 board members.
Mhm.
But I'll double check with President Sanella, make sure it looks like all 5 board members will be there and make sure he's comfortable putting that on the agenda. And then we can have a similar discussion at the board as we just had right now.
Sure. I think that would be helpful just so that we can know what direction we're going to go and then make a plan. Director Pettick and I have more to do, so it would be nice if we knew what we were doing.
Yeah, and you'll find a lot of the training is really helpful. Even if you forget about the district of distinction, I think a lot of it will be helpful just to understand your role better. What is staff's role? How do we more effectively work together? Those types of things.
Mhm.
There's some really good training out there.
Great. Okay, well, that sounds good.
All right, that's it on that item. Succession plan update. I don't think we have much to share on that. I know it's on the old business. There hasn't been a lot of activity on that. So unless the committee has any specific questions, we can probably move on to new business. Okay, hearing none. So the first item under new business is a review of sexual harassment and bullying policy. Director
Yes.
Boyd Hodgson, you asked that it be on here, so maybe you can explain what information you'd like.
Sure. So as several of us just went through the sexual harassment training as part of our mandated training, and part of that training, it was suggested that we have a look at the sexual harassment policy in our districts. And since we're the policy committee, I thought it would be appropriate for us to have a look at it. And, we haven't taken up the work of looking at all of the policies and examining their relevance, but since this was suggested as something that we should look at, I thought we should do it in the policy committee. That's the logical place for it to start. There was also something mentioned during that training about a bullying policy, and I'm not sure if we have one or not. So I think I'll start there. Let's pull up the sexual harassment policy. Let's have a look, and then let's talk about whether or not we have a bullying policy. And if not, then maybe that's something that we need to think about.
Okay, yeah, maybe, and I'm gonna let Rondi or Bridget jump in real soon, but what we can do is explain what we have. And it's not all packaged together. We don't have a discrimination, harassment, and bullying policy, but we have policies that cover all of those things. So Rondi, why don't you take the lead, and then maybe Bridget can join in as appropriate.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, so we do have a discrimination and harassment policy. I'm going to try to back up just a little bit. So in our employee handbook, we have addendums with all of our policies. Well, I should say the longer policies are an addendum. The shorter ones are just right in the middle of the employee handbook. So discrimination and harassment is one that is included in the addendum of the employee handbook. And the one that we currently have, we have made some changes to it, but it's not final. So after negotiations with employees and we have a memorandum of understanding, then we go through the employee handbook and see what areas need to be updated. And that's the good time to look at the whole handbook and update other policies as needed. It doesn't mean that we can't bring an individual policy back to the board separately, but for timing and for the amount of effort that goes into the employee handbook, we usually time it with an MOU. So kind of going back a little bit in time, after the last MOU, I was working on changes to the handbook. I worked with Best and Krieger to review the entire handbook, including the discrimination and harassment policy, and they actually totally rewrote it. I mean, I'm sure you can imagine once you turn a policy over to attorneys, it goes from a 2-page document into a much longer document. And some of it is changes to keep up with laws that have changed over the years. But thankfully, we do have a provision in our current policy that says other categories that are protected under the law. Because as you know, in the last several years, there's been a lot of updates to the sexual harassment prevention laws. So we're not out of compliance, but we do need to bring the revised policy back to the board at some point. And my recommendation is to bring it at the same time as the employee handbook. Separately, we do have a bullying policy in our employee handbook. It's interesting that sexual harassment prevention training requires an abusive conduct section, which really is what bullying is, but they don't necessarily recommend that you put bullying in your sexual harassment prevention policy. And I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole because I'll probably need advice of counsel, but my understanding is that there wasn't an agreed upon definition of bullying, and bullying isn't against the law. So they didn't want to require that to be an element of your harassment policy, but it is required as part of the harassment training. So hopefully that makes sense, but we do have both. We have a discrimination and harassment policy and a bullying policy. That was a mouthful.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And I'm glad to know that we have both. Bringing it back after the MOU puts that revision at 2 years from now, correct? Because the MOU is up in 2023.
That would normally be the time frame, but I'm still working on changes from the last MOU. So I was planning to bring those forward to the board last year in 2020, and then COVID hit. And COVID, believe it or not, has just consumed me and my staff's jobs. So my handbook revisions were kind of placed on hold, but my goal is to bring them back this year, to bring them back in 2021, get the whole handbook ready to go before we start negotiations of the next MOU.
I think that's reasonable. And I know that it has been a very difficult time for you. So what I just wanted to avoid was for this to come up 2 years from now and nothing to happen between now and then. So it sounds like that was your plan to bring it forward this year. And if you think that that's still reasonable, given all of the other things that you have to do, I think that sounds great. So maybe, how does that work? You'll bring forward the employee handbook to this committee, or you'll bring just the policy to this committee, or is it, whatever we request?
Yeah, I would look to the general manager for guidance, but it really is, this committee didn't meet in the past when I brought.
Yes, I know. I'm aware. I've been told that several times.
Yeah, so it's really whatever you want. In the past, we would take the whole handbook to the full board and just go over the highlights, but it's overwhelming because, so many things get updated. And the laws, those are the easy ones where you can say, hey, the law changed and we updated this section. So it really just depends on what you'd like to see. We could give you an overview of all of the changes and then kind of dive deeper into the ones that you want more information about. Since I have, kind of stuck it on the back burner for the past year, I'm going to need to get the cobwebs out of my brain, circle back with BB&K, make sure there's nothing that I missed that might have changed over the last year. And then also there's an element of communication with the employee association, because anytime we update our policies, they also get to review them ahead of time before they come to the board. So, I'm happy to bring it forward as soon as I can, but I will have to do some other things first. So it's going to take me probably a couple months before I can come back to this group, unless you want to hone in on the harassment policy, and I can bring that sooner.
No, I think just, I know that you have a lot to do. So continue on with what you're doing. And then let's maybe schedule or tentatively plan to see it in a few months. And I don't think we need to walk through the entire employee handbook word for word. I think, as you've suggested, it's a big document, but I would like to see this policy, and I would like to see the bullying policy with its updates and have a look at it. So I guess that's sort of a compromised request, sort of in the middle.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
that's about what I was going to suggest. So a couple things. One is, and Rondi touched on this, although we're going to decouple the updates from the MOU process, there is probably, and I don't know if I technically call it a meet and confer, but we have to meet with the association so they understand the changes. And two is, we'll schedule something with the policy committee to give you an overview of what the current policy says, what changes there are going to be, and an update on timing. And I don't see the committee being involved in the wording that we're going to be coming up with, but we'd certainly like to get input of what the committee may think in terms of what should be covered, if it's not mandated by law already.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll schedule it for maybe in a couple of policy committees, and we'll bring that item back in front of the committee here.
Sure.
Okay, anything else on that? No. All right, so the next item I have is employee return to work update. Rondi, you want to take a stab at that, or you want me to, or?
No, actually, I asked Tricia if she could handle this one for us, since it's also related to the COVID prevention plan that we had talked about previously. So, but I guess I will kick it off since you punted it my way. But
Yeah.
we had our second group of employees return 2 weeks ago, and our last group will return this Wednesday. So, as each group comes back, new issues kind of come to light, and we address things as they come up. One of the surprises we got from our last group, and it wasn't the employees, it was just really bad timing. We had some issues with restrooms of all things. So we had this great plan to keep employee groups separate and apart from each other. And then lo and behold, our restrooms are out of service. So it's just, as most things related to COVID over the past year, we roll with it and we try to figure out, how we can address those issues. And thankfully, the restrooms are repaired, and we're able to keep our groups still separate and get ready for the next group's return on Wednesday. But I will, if you don't have any questions about that, I'll turn it over to Tricia to talk a little bit about our COVID prevention plan.
You with us there, Tricia?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning.
I was going to just share my screen so you can see like the table of contents for the COVID prevention plan. I was thinking that's probably the fastest way to get to the heart of the matter. So just give me 1 second. My team skills are much better than my Zoom skills. So I have to find the right window. Oh boy, it's here somewhere. Hang on 1 second. Too many windows. I found it. Okay, so I'm hoping that you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, yay. Okay, so this is our COVID prevention plan. So real quick intro. I don't want to, like Rondi said, we have spent the last year plus, right, deep in the heart of COVID, and I don't want to bore anybody. But long before the COVID prevention plan was required, we started our safety protocols basically immediately. We had a sanitation and disinfection protocol within, I would say, a couple of weeks tops, really within days of us realizing that, COVID was happening. The COVID prevention plan really came about because Cal OSHA passed a law effective as of November 30th, 2020, that said employers must have a plan. And here's the elements it should address. The good news was we already had a lot of those elements. We just had to put them all in one place now, which is fine. That's great. Plus, it helps with emergency planning going forward, pandemic preparedness, yada, yada, yada. So it does help us in the future too. So anyway, COVID prevention plan, you can see on my screen. I'll try not to give anybody vertigo by scrolling around, but table of contents. The table of contents is pretty much mandated by OSHA. I mean, they don't say you must have a table of contents that says this, but they pretty much give you the outline of what the plan is going to be. So there's not a lot of thought other than should we organize it to make it more succinct in some way or another. The main thing for me in any safety plan is that we write it so that it's easy for employees to understand, it's as easy as possible to follow, and then also that we meet the compliance and the legal requirements. So just real quick, there's an introduction, there's authority and references. I'll take you to those so you can kind of see authority and references. And then we always assign responsibility. So what's the management team responsible for? What are employees responsible for? What do supervisors have to enforce versus someone else? Communication, obviously super important during COVID because things were changing all the time. We have an internet jostle page, intranet jostle page, and that's really how we pushed everything out in a central location, although we also used email. And then it goes into the details of how we are controlling the hazards associated with COVID. So, prevention measures, wear your face mask, face covering, keep your distance, et cetera, et cetera. Engineering controls like plexiglass partitions in some cases. Reporting and record keeping, that kind of goes over, there's several different laws that were passed at different times about notifying contractors, notifying employees, yada, yada, yada. So we had to get all that in one spot, which is kind of nice that it's all in one spot now, as opposed to us trying to just respond as everything changed. And then we do have our outbreak section. So the outbreak section is also called out specifically in the Cal OSHA standard. There's actually two sections of the Cal OSHA standard. One says outbreak and then one says major outbreak. For us, the only outbreak we've ever had, and you all have heard about it because of our testing, was the lesser of the two kinds of outbreaks where it's 3 or more cases in a workplace within 14-day period. So anyway, this section kind of goes over that protocol. And of course, we're refining that to make sure that we've incorporated any lessons learned from December and January. So while we don't ever want to have an outbreak, at least since we did have one, we can take something good from it, right? So I keep saying there are COVID silver linings. And really, that's about it. Definitions kind of go through all the COVID stuff. And then I have some attachments so that people know what they are, or as references. So happy to answer any questions if anybody has any, or go through any more detail if you'd like it.
So our goal as we've been bringing these waves of people back is to make sure that we're doing it in a careful way so that we don't expose the district to another outbreak. Obviously, the first concern is people's health, but it was very expensive. When we were classified an outbreak, it was very expensive testing. You may recall we spent over $90,000 in mandated testing. So keeping people in different areas of the building and in different buildings from each other, even it helps that in the off chance that you do have another outbreak, it really reduces the number of people that you would have to test, and obviously then reduces the cost of that testing. We don't know exactly when we'll tear down the barriers and allow people to flow freely, but we're not there yet. We know that. One thing I'll add to what Rondi said, so this Wednesday, we're bringing back that last wave of employees, but there will still be a few people that won't be coming back on Wednesday because they may have underlying health conditions or family members that have underlying health conditions. So we're still working with individual employees to accommodate their particular needs. We're not going with a one size fits all. And it's been challenging to do that, but it's the right thing to do. And we're hopeful that after this last wave comes back on Wednesday, that we'll bring the rest of the folks back in short order as soon as the conditions allow. So
this is clearly a lot of work, and thank you for being proactive and starting this work before it was mandated. And it looks like it's very comprehensive. And so congratulations for putting it together, and to you, Glenn, and to staff. It's clearly a lot of work. And yes, keeping employees safe is important, and it also helps save us some money and helps things run more efficiently. What are the thoughts, and is there discussion about board members and meetings? How does that factor into this plan, or is that a separate issue that will come before the board at some point?
I don't know if it'll come before the board, but it's certainly something we've been talking about. It hasn't been forefront in our mind because we knew the board return to physical board meetings is going to be pretty still in the future, right? It wasn't the first order of business for us. But then after we get all of our employees back, the next big things we have to deal with is reopening the building to the public to allow people to come in, pay their bills and things like that, or engineers to come in and meet with our engineering team on a development project. And then after that is going to be returning to physical board meetings. So we haven't forgotten about it, just not where we've been focusing our attention. But having said that, I don't think it's too far into the future. I think as we get into that June timeframe, we'll really be seriously considering reopening the building to the public and having meetings in person with the board members. Now, clearly, we'd like to the extent the board members want to share their vaccination history, it would be helpful to know who's been vaccinated, who hasn't. That may weigh in our decisions as to whether we want to get the board members back in person. And then we have to deal with the issue of hybrid board meetings. Are we going to have physical board meetings where not all board members are in attendance, or where all board members are in attendance, but the public may be coming in remotely? So now that we're getting our head a little bit above water and we have a little bit of time to think about that, we'll start turning our attention to reopening the building, whether it's for the public or for the board members to come in.
Thank you. Yes, it's a lot to think about. So we'll look forward to more discussions about that. And I hope that we can have a robust discussion about that. There are, there are all kinds of moving parts.
Yeah. And I think it would be really nice for our two newest board members to be able to actually meet the other 3 board members in person. It would kind of be a nice thing, right?
Sure.
So, okay, I think that's all we had on that item. All right, so moving into public awareness, old business, the first item is a task force formation for career path and education in schools in the community. So it's listed as old business. I don't think staff has anything to present on that, so I'll look to you, Director Boyd Hodgson. Is there anything in particular for a task force formation that you were thinking?
Sure. So, we had the presentation by Bill Dean last meeting. I'm sorry, just one second, please. It's lunchtime in my house, and that happens to be taking place right behind me. So, we had the great presentation by Bill Dean's group, and I'm very much interested in whether it's Bill Dean's group or another group, continuing to have that conversation. I think in order to, I had a conversation or email back and forth with you, General Manager Prum, about cost sharing as it's been done in other cities. And, I think at some point, if we do implement some kind of educational program, we do need to look at how, who foots the bill. And given the cost estimates that I've heard from other folks, it's depending on what we go with, I think that we should loop other people and other agencies in to help with this bill that we might be having, if we decide to go with Bill Dean's group. So my question is, how can we get that started? I've already been having conversations, but not in an official capacity, with people on the school board and people at the city. So how can we get that started? What do we need to do? And how can we move it forward?
So my conversations with Bill, the way he structures his program, he provides a price to each individual organization. He hasn't had anybody ask him to partner specifically on a thing. At least he didn't explain that to me. So he, subsequent to our, I don't know, was it I think it was our last policy committee meeting where Bill joined us. He provided me a schedule of his programs and his prices. I worked with Wes, and we are incorporating the monies into the proposed budget as a separate item, so the board can give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, whether they want to move forward with it. We're going to recommend that the policy committee, supports the movement. If there's a particular task that you'd like us to work with another agency, such as the City of San Marcos or the San Marcos Unified School District, to couple our programs together, I could probably talk to Bill and see how he would suggest something like that works. Right now, I know the San Marcos Unified, Bill's working with them. He's working with us individually. So he's taking the agencies on individually and providing services to them as individual agencies, not as a coupled group. So I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but he didn't have like a group rate that he would then leave up to the agencies to figure out how to cost share.
Okay. I think it makes sense for us to work together because we're talking about educating the same group of kids.
Yeah.
It makes sense to work together. And what I would like to know kind of what services are. It sounds like you have the information. I would like to see that information, what he's talking about providing. I can go on the website and I've seen that, and the website's really good. It's got a lot of great information, but before it's presented to the board as a potential budget item that we have to vote up or down on, I'd like to know more information about it. And to me, it makes sense because the kids are going to be in San Marcos Unified. It doesn't make sense for, for him to be sort of running interference and potentially doing the same work with the two agencies and us both paying for it to educate the same kids in the same way. I'm not saying he's doing that. I'm just saying it makes sense for us to have some kind of consolidated grouping about this because we're all sort of working towards the same goal. So I think, that's what I'd like to continue talking about. And maybe we need to bring him back in, or maybe we need to take it offline. Maybe it's not something that we do in this committee, but maybe we set up another meeting where we can bring him in, have more of a conversation about what the nuts and bolts look like, and bring in someone from the school district. Or, and if it, I know the city of Encinitas was involved when he was working with them. So I'm not sure, what the roles and responsibilities would be, but it makes sense for us to work together and not all separately.
Yeah, you're right. So cost sharing aside, we're certainly going to be in some ways partners with the school district, because Bill targets, the program is geared towards the kids in the school district, right?
Mhm.
One of the conditions I told Bill is that the only way we would support the program, or the only way as general manager I could see supporting the program, is to make sure that that program is offered in the schools within our district service area. So that's why Bill has focused his attention on developing a relationship with the San Marcos Unified School District, because that's the one that primarily where the school age kids live in our service area. So I think there's an inherent shared program there. What we haven't talked about is, well, how much should the school pay for that versus how much should the district pay for that? So the cost share that Bill gave me was our share of that overall coordinated program, and with the understanding that we would be working to figure out what schools will we be at. Bill would love for district professionals to join him when you can go back to schools again, and have one of our water operators go talk to the kids in the classroom. So that's where I think where the partnership really comes into play. And those are, I wouldn't say they're free, because obviously it's an employee's time, but it's time we're paying for already, right? It's not over and above our budgeted costs. It would just be redirecting that part of that person's day to go to a classroom. So I think that's where the partnerships really come in, when we figure out how can this water district help support the efforts with the school kids. The money was really a small number. I would say, you may recall, I think I shared with you, he had like 5 programs. I thought only 2 were beneficial for us. One was 20,000, the other was 10,000. So it wasn't a huge budgetary number. I don't know how much staff time it would take, so I haven't come up with an estimate of that, because Bill hasn't told me what he expects for support from the water districts. But Director Boyd Hodgson, I think that's an excellent suggestion. Maybe we can have an offline meeting with Bill Dean, and as long as we don't have more than 2 board members, it'd be fine to do that, and then Bill can help flesh out where we want to go with this partnership.
Yeah, I'm really supportive of his work, and I think that it, as you, general manager, have said several times, we have a lot of jobs that are going to need to be filled, and that's just the beginning. So, talking to these kids early on and getting them interested in water, and pulling that through at the district level, and then, pulling it through at the community college level and at the university level, which is, sort of a bigger vision for something that could start like this, I think is really something that we need to focus on, to keep getting people to come to work at Vallecitos, and keep our district operational and running efficiently and well as we move later into the 21st century. So is that the action item then, that maybe we can coordinate a meeting with Bill, and I can see if I can have someone from the district join us too? Would you like for me to do that?
That's fine for me. I'm looking at Director Pennick on my screen. I don't know if Director Pennick would like to be part of that, or just give a thumbs up and say, yeah, go ahead and do it. You're muted, Director Pennick.
Yeah, go ahead and do it. I mean, it sounds
Okay.
good. You're
So
all
maybe
over it.
I'll work
Sounds
with
good.
Director
Okay.
Boyd Hodgson. We'll get Bill involved, and Director Boyd Hodgson, I'll look to you to maybe get the right person from the school district, and then we can have a
Okay.
sit down or
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
okay, good deal. All right, so the next item is the San Marcos Youth Baseball Field drainage. So I did reach out to city staff. They acknowledge that they have some problems with drainage on fields, particularly field number 3. They do have some thoughts about proposed improvements in the future to help alleviate the drainage, but there's no projects in their CIP or on their work plan at this point in time. They just know historically if there's a heavy rain, field 3 is going to be soaked. They do acknowledge that they tend to close their fields to play a lot quicker and sooner than other surrounding cities do. So for example, one of the complaints they get is Carlsbad fields are open. Why aren't San Marcos fields open? And they just say that they're very conservative. It's a risk issue, right? They don't want to have the kids out there playing if there's standing water and the field's too wet. So they acknowledge they're probably one of the first groups to close the fields. They don't think that the district has any role. And I specifically asked them. I said, hey, do you see any involvement with the water district? And they said, nope, we're fine. This is a city issue and we're dealing with it. But so they didn't offer any real hope, but they did say they're aware of it and they're working on addressing the issue to the extent they can with the funding they have. And
Okay.
the gentleman I talked to, his name is Stu. He said if either of you are interested in talking to him, he's with their Public Works Parks Maintenance group. I don't know I didn't catch his last name, but he said he's happy to talk about any of the issues if you want. Otherwise, I can share any continuing concerns with him.
No, thank you for checking on that. I think that was much more information than I think. I mean, that was a very generous get of information on your part. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And as you know, because you had mentioned that you were going to make sure that Vallecitos wasn't contributing to the problem, and it sounds like we're not. It sounds like the city knows about it, but they don't really have any plans to do anything about it in the immediate future.
Yeah, we had checked internally to make sure we didn't think we had any contribution, but I wanted to make sure from their perspective that they didn't think we had any contribution, and they don't.
Okay.
They said, oh no, we don't think it's your drainage that's flooding our fields. They realize it's their issue to solve, which good. It doesn't help the kids, but it
Right.
At least they're not looking to us to solve it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next item is the interceptor video, and Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you if you don't mind.
Thank you so much. So Alicia's still working on the interceptor video. I've seen it. She's put it together, and I really like it a lot. One of the issues is that Ryan, one of our senior engineers, is a lot of the narration of the video, and I think he's a little, people are, he's not happy with how his presentation at certain points, so they're going to go out and reshoot some of that on Wednesday. The video will be ready by May 18th. We're going to show it to the San Marcos Kiwanis. The San Marcos Kiwanis is a Speakers Bureau event we're going to do. And rather than just giving them a PowerPoint, it's perfect to show that video there. So I think we'll debut it there. I was speaking to General Manager Puim about it. I don't think the work will be complete by May 18th. And I'm hesitant to just kind of, give out this video when we're not really done with it yet. So the timeline for its completion may trickle into June, and Alicia can edit a new ending once the work is done. So I think that's what we'll do. You learn, and I'm not sure if I explain it very well, but when Alicia makes a video, it's almost like layers on a cake, and a multiple layer cake where she's got the actual video, and then she's got music layers, and she's got sound layers and graphic layers. And she even on this one included closed caption on it. So it's actually pretty neat in that she included closed caption in this one. So I'm excited to show it to you. But the other thing she worked on that if you'll indulge me, I'll try and play it right now, is she did put together a little short, less than 3-minute video on careers in water and possible careers at Vallecitos. It's not a lot of talking, just a lot of activity showing the various jobs that we have and some of the people, and the fact that there's going to be a lot of jobs open in San Diego County. And so trying to show both that there's jobs here and that there's jobs within the region. And if I'll share my screen and see if I can't show that.
And Chris, while you're doing that, just to clarify, on the Kiwanis event, that was the topic was suggested by the Kiwanis group, right? They said, hey, can you come present regarding the interceptor?
Yeah, that was pretty exciting in that the Kiwanis saw the article in Between the Pipes and said, hey, can you have somebody come out and talk more about this, which was nice to hear.
I'd like to attend that meeting. So if you could keep me in the loop about
Absolutely.
when,
It's at 11
when and
o'clock.
where and how to tune in.
11 o'clock on May 18th. If you can put that on your calendar, and then I'll give you the link when it comes time.
I want to see the video debut. Roll out the red carpet. That's
Right?
awesome.
Right.
Can you all see my screen? Is that what you're looking at?
Yep, we can see
Say
it, Chris.
careers
Yes.
in water. Is that what it shows?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
That's great.
Yeah, Trisha's probably looking at that and saying, that's not me in the hazmat suit. I'm not sure whether it is or it isn't, but I don't think it was actually Trisha in the hazmat suit. But we got a lot of different people in there. You saw Bridget, who was on the call, and General Manager Proem, who was on this. So a lot of different staff, a lot of different positions, trying to give a broad look at all the different jobs we have here at the district.
What's the plan for that video? Are you going to distribute it? I mean, it seems like that video has a lot of legs and can be used in a lot of different places.
Absolutely. One of the things we wanted to do was we didn't have such good success with the event with the students, and I'm not sure if it's real clear in this video, but you saw a few certain points where staff were at Palomar College, where Bridget was standing with students, and I think I was talking with students in one of the shots where there's you can see a coffee truck in the background. That was our event with San Marcos Promise, where we're out there talking to students to get them into this. And this is the type of thing we will be sharing on social media, on our website, but also as a tool to recruit, high school students.
Mhm. Is there such a thing as a water jobs week? Do you know?
I think it's more what we call Public Works Week typically, and we
Okay.
kind of jump on that bandwagon because that one's a bigger one. But there's various ways to share this specific video.
Chris, can you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah. How do I do that? There we go.
Just like that? Yeah. Yeah, so Director Boyd Hodgson and Director Pennick, there's a water week, there's a public works week, but there's nothing specific related to jobs. But those are good opportunities to get the word out if you're in that industry, to get the word out about jobs. I'd like Chris to maybe look for a way to connect with some of the parents too, because the kids sometimes are a little bit disconnected, but I think a lot of times parents are trying to help their kids find their way in life. And if we can expose the parents to this career, then the parents may help kind of guide the kids in that direction too. I don't know the best way to do that, but that's another potential source for us to start getting the word out. It was a great video.
Great work.
Chris.
Great
Very
work.
good job. Really good job. And it seems like Palomar, I don't know, we don't talk about Palomar College, the community college, but that's right in our backyard. I mean, what a great resource.
Oh, so I didn't bring it up, but just last week I was on an advisory committee with Palomar College with kind of a broad group of individuals trying to help Palomar upgrade its water and wastewater technology classes. Cuyamaca has a really extensive water and wastewater technology program. It's actually got on-site equipment that staff, students can use. And Palomar, honestly, probably isn't quite feeling the same level of love for their program, but they do have a staff person on board who's trying to get it to where it needs to be. And we did make some votes and recommendations for him that were beneficial to his program. So yeah, we do partner with Palomar College.
Just seems like there's so many community, Maricosta, Miramar, a lot of community college where our district would just fit right into some of those kids coming out of high school and just, 2 years of community college.
Yeah, and I think in one of the videos, where Bridget's talking, in this video, there's a sequence where you can see Bridget and some of our water operators and wastewater operators were there talking to the students about, hey, if you don't know what you want to do, this is something you can do, and you can go to school at the same time. And we've had real good success when we go out and meet with people in person. It's just a little trickier when we're not in person, but if we kind of continue with these remote things, this kind of video is something that we can show students just much easier than if it's completely remote and we don't get a chance to talk to them.
I think we may have talked a little bit in the past about the internship program that we work with the County Water Authority on. So the County Water Authority is kind of the mothership, and they run the internship program, but they partner with not all of them, but I think about at least half or more of the member agencies collaborate with the Water Authority. So when the Water Authority gets interns into the program, they try to find host agencies to give these people 4 8-week sessions where they can spend 8 weeks at an agency and learn how that agency does. They call them modules, one of those modules of work, and it could be wastewater collections or wastewater treatment or water operations. So, and one of the main sources, the Water Authority, where they get their interns, is referrals from groups like Palomar College and Cuyamaca and that. So there's kind of an indirect relationship that we have with the community colleges by participating with the Water Authority's intern program. But it's been really successful. Almost all the agencies, water agencies that I'm aware of, have either hosted an intern or ultimately hired somebody at their agency that served as an intern through the Water Authority's program. So it's a really good program. I'm glad the Water Authority takes the lead, but all the member agencies really benefit from it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Ivan came from there. Ivan is one of the staff that work here.
Yeah, I think we have 3 employees that have gone through the internship program, so it's very successful. And that was kind of another victim of COVID, right? You're nervous enough about bringing your own employees into the workplace. You don't want to bring in somebody from the outside when you know that they've just spent time at 3 other agencies, right? So the Water Authority temporarily suspended the internship program. They're hoping to start it in late summer or fall, and they checked in with us to make sure we're still want to participate. And we said absolutely. We gave them some thoughts about safety. We want to make sure that the people that they send our way have either been tested and or vaccinated, but otherwise we want to really support that internship program.
Hey, Chris, who are you talking with at Palomar?
Let me look up his name.
You can just let's talk offline about that. I'm interested in helping any way I can to facilitate, that connection. I think that, it's part of the big picture of getting kids interested in water and then giving them a pathway to jobs and growing our local economy and, things like that. That's something that I'm really interested in. So maybe we can just keep talking offline about that.
I've got it. It's Jacob Sheba. I can email it to you.
Thank you.
Chris, anything else on the video?
Great work.
Right.
Great work.
Thank you. All right, so moving on in the agenda, we're under the third grouping, which is policy. So old business, the update on the consolidation of the resolutions, ordinances, and practices. And I'll cover a little bit of it and then maybe ask Ann or Diane to jump in if they want to. So we have updated the website. So the status for all of the ordinances has been updated. So if you go to our website, you can see which ones are active versus inactive. And the status for all of our resolutions has been updated going back 20 years. So not all of them, but for the last 20 years, which is kind of the more important ones. And that's about 30% of all the resolutions. We've been separating the folders for active and inactive, so it's easier to find things and not be inundated when you're searching for a particular thing. So when an ordinance or a resolution is repealed or replaced, the status is manually changed to inactive. Then the document will automatically move into the inactive folder. So it does require a little work on staff's part to click the box and say it's inactive, but then it's automated on the website when people are searching. So
Great.
yeah, so things are moving along in that way. Not everything's available right now, but I think we mentioned last time that we're going to be trying to prioritize those things that are the most important and most recent first, and that's what we've been doing. So Ann, if there's anything else you want to add to that? Ann, are you still with us?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't think so. I think you kind of covered it mostly. The other thing I guess I would mention, I think we talked about this before, Daniel, who's our IT guy that's, the mastermind behind all this, he is waiting for Laserfish to either issue an update or issue a fix for a bug that doesn't allow us to display on our website, like say the ordinance is the most recent and then going down. So that, when you go on to the website, and there's various areas that you can look at these documents, you'll see, ordinance number 1 up there because it's still active. I mean, it's, 50 some years old, but it's active. I think, well, that's an example anyway. Anyway, so if you want to look at newer ones, you have to scroll down, or what you can do is you can click on the name of the ordinance or the resolution. I think if you double click on it, it will sort it from the most recent down. So until they get that fixed, it's displayed the way it is, where you see the oldest ones first. So, and I don't know what the time frame on that is when they're going to issue an update on their software. So that's, I guess, all I would add to it.
Yeah, that's the downside of using existing programs is you don't have control over those updates. And if your need isn't supported by their program, then you have to wait for them to hopefully update their system to allow that to happen. But thank you, Ann.
It sounds like a lot of great progress has been made, and I'm looking forward to just, poking around and having a look at it. If, once everything is consolidated, if there, if you wanted to have kind of a demo during the meeting, that might be helpful for Director Pennock and myself. But it sounds like you're making great progress, and I know it's been a tremendous amount of work. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I like the idea of a demo. We can bring it up at a future meeting when it's ready, and then we can do some canned demo, and then maybe on the fly say, hey, what do you want to look for? And we'll show how the search features work and things like that. And I think,
Great. Yeah, I think it'd be a great way to showcase all of the work that you've done as well,
Yeah.
to really sort of make that known.
yeah, and I think the other part, and we probably need to work with Chris and our website folks, is to make sure that it's as easy as possible for people to find it. So being able to use a tool is great to teach people how to use the tool, but they need to be able to find the tool first. So I'll work with Chris and make sure that it's easy for people to find. We've all gone onto websites and it's not always intuitive as to how to find something. And we just want to make sure that things are as intuitive as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, so they'll new
Glenn?
business. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add one thing. The last time I think Director Boyd Hodgson asked where you could find this information on a website, and I only knew of one place, but there's actually several places. You can look at the I Want To tab on our opening web page. There's a transparency tab that you can find it, and you can actually find it in the engineering tab under their document library tab. So there are there's several different ways that you can get at this stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. All right, so the new business under policy, the title is Posting Process for Board and Committee Meetings, Video, and Minutes. It's a little bit long, but I think the genesis of this was there was some concern expressed by members of the public that it was taking a long time for the videos and the minutes of meetings to get posted on the website. Is that a fair summary, Director Boyd Hodgson?
I think it was actually independent. I had a concern as well. I wasn't aware of the public concern at the time that I had the concern, but it was a dual concern. It turned out to be coincidental.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen. I've been working with staff on this issue, so I'll share my screen real quick. Can you see this? Can you see
Yes.
the flow chart? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
What we try to do, and I'm not going to go box by box, but if you start in the upper left corner, the first thing that starts this process is the agenda needs to be finalized that kicks off the whole meeting, right? And then you go through this whole series of steps that have to take place. And as you follow them along, and they basically end up with the minutes being posted and the video being posted. And what we tried to do is to show the blue boxes show what activity is being done, and the orange box below is assigning a person that's responsible. And each of these people have a backup for their task. So one of the reasons the minutes in particular take a while to get posted is because, so we'll conduct a meeting. So that's the meeting that the minutes are for. And after the meeting, then we have to prepare a draft of the minutes, right? And that takes some time. So a draft is prepared, then there's several steps of review internally. And then ultimately I make the final review and I say, okay, the minutes are good. And then the minutes get posted to a subsequent meeting agenda to be approved. And it's only after the minutes have been approved at a subsequent meeting that they can be added to the website. We certainly don't want to put on minutes that haven't been approved. So there's an inherent lag on the minutes. They can't be put up immediately. So although you can't see it in this detailed flow chart, we're going to be start adding timelines to these things. But for the committee members' purposes, I would say it's probably reasonable, and let's stick with just board meetings. Let's not focus on committee meetings, but from a board meeting perspective, the minutes probably won't be available till at least 2 meetings after the board meeting that in question, right? Because when we have a meeting on a Wednesday, the following week, we're finalizing the board packet for the next meeting. And there's not enough time between the previous board meeting and the posting time to have the minutes revised. So it's almost impossible to get the minutes for a meeting on the board approval docket for the subsequent meeting. So from a time element, I guess I would offer that it's probably going to be about a month or 2 meetings from when a meeting is conducted until when those meetings, the minutes of that meeting is available on a website. So just try to set the expectations. The videos are a bit quicker because the videos don't get approved by the board. The minutes are a formal document for what happened at the meeting, so those have to get board approval. But the video has its own process too, right? We conduct the meeting and we videotape it. And then that videotape has to get reviewed by staff. Then it gets sent to an outside party that does the post-processing, and they have a certain turnaround time, and they send it back to us. And when it's back in our hands, then it can get posted. So you'll often find that the video of a meeting is available before the minutes of a meeting are available. And all this, again, this flow chart, I'm not going to go box by box, but it was our internal process to make sure that we're controlling all the steps, that we have the right people assigned, and we have the right amount of time assigned so that we can get both the videos and the minutes on the website as soon as possible. And I'd be happy to answer any question. I don't know if you can read the wording in the boxes. If you have any questions about process or timeline, I'd be happy to answer them.
I wonder if, I understand the process for the minutes. And I understand what I think is the process for the video. I'm wondering if the process for the video, if there is not a way to simulcast to YouTube as we're broadcasting it live. For example, there's a platform called StreamYard, and you can broadcast through StreamYard directly to YouTube. And I'm thinking about cutting costs, but also cutting time. I think it's valuable for, it seems like by the next time there is a meeting, that the information should be available from the previous meeting. And meaning that, the minutes from the previous meeting go into the board packet for the next meeting to be approved. And I think that's the way we usually do it, right? It's usually the next meeting that the minutes are in the board packet to be approved.
Not always.
Isn't it?
That's what we try to do, but there's oftentimes, depending on workload and the amount of information that goes into the subsequent meeting, that we don't have the time to devote to the minutes. We're so busy getting ready for the upcoming meeting that we don't have the time to look kind of backwards to the meeting that's already occurred. So that's why I was saying it's, from an expectation perspective, I would say it's reasonable to say it'll probably be it'll maybe take 2 meetings before the minutes get approved. And then once the board approves them, we can post them immediately. So
Sure.
Some of the staff conversations. So for example, if we have a board meeting on a Wednesday and we approve minutes from a previous meeting, then Thursday morning, the first thing, we can be posting those approved minutes to the website. So that's not the delay. It's just the inherent time to get it on to get the minutes prepared, placed on the agenda, and have the meeting conducted and have the minutes approved. That's what gets us. And with those kind of finite time periods, meeting every 2 weeks, and sometimes there's 3 weeks between the meetings, depends how many weeks there are in a month. But I didn't want to raise an expectation that the board or the committee thought that minutes would always be on the following board meeting.
Okay, I understand.
Sometimes committees happen a little quicker, not always, but sometimes they do.
So is it reasonable that the video, because I think, I think the idea is that if someone can't attend the live meeting, there needs to be some kind of proceedings that they can look at, whether it's the video or the minutes.
Right.
So if is it reasonable to expect that the video will always be posted from the previous meeting before the next meeting? Is that a reasonable thing that we can commit to?
Yes.
Given the limitations of the minute process and preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we could commit to that for board
Okay.
meetings. I can't say that the video for a committee will be available by the next board meeting, but the committee will be available by the
Sure.
next
No, I
committee
understand.
meeting. Right.
Yeah, understood.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, because we have a lot more control over that. That's a little easier. It doesn't involve the board approval process. So, and I think we can. And I've checked with Chris. So we have an outside party that puts the video together for us, and they have a contract and they have a certain a certain turnaround time. And that turnaround time is short enough that would allow us to do exactly what you're asking for, Director Boyd Hodgson. I see Chris raising his hand there, so maybe you can add something.
That was just 5 days.
Oh, it's okay. So they have 5 days. Yeah. So usually our IT group will the next day. So we have a board meeting. The next day, our IT group does what they need to do at the video. And then it gets passed along maybe to Chris's group, gets passed along to the contractor. And then they do their work and they have 5 days and it comes back. And then it can be posted. So yes, that's a reasonable expectation that the video will be available before the next board meeting.
Okay. I'm happy with that. I think that is reasonable. And it meets the need of if someone can't attend the meeting in person once we go back to in-person meetings, or they can't attend it via Zoom as it's happening live, then at least they'll have a record so that they can feel prepared if they so choose to attend the next meeting. I think that that's reasonable.
Yep. Okay. And we can do that. Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
they may want to, at a subsequent meeting, they may want to say something in public comment that they wouldn't have had to say if they had seen the video or vice
Right.
versa. So,
Okay, so maybe we can commit to that the videos will be available of public board meetings will be available before the next public board meeting. And I understand that committee meetings are a little bit different, but I would hope that we could sort of operate on a similar
Yep.
Time scale, not necessarily this committee meeting obviously being available before the next board meeting. That's not reasonable. But if it takes 5 to 7 days to post a video, then we can apply that across all of the committee meetings and expect that around 5 to 7 days after the meeting is held, whether it's finance or whether it's P3 or whether it's engineering or any other committee, that we could try to commit to doing that.
Okay, we can do that. All right, I think that's all staff had for today's meeting. Oh, Anne's waving her hand there.
I just wanted to say one thing about the minutes. I work really hard to try and get the minutes done as quickly as possible so that we can include them in the next board packet. And like, for instance, this week we have today's meeting, and then we have a board meeting, and then we have a board workshop. And then next Monday, we probably have an engineering committee meeting. So the committee meetings, I think, are the ones that have been kind of delayed lately because there's so many of them. I can't get them all done at once. But for the most part, I try and really hard to get at least the board minutes done. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I know it's a lot of work and the minutes are always really well done. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, so I see our next meeting date is June 7th.
Yep, I think that's right. I think I looked at the calendar correctly.
Okay, I think you did too. I double checked that. And I think that's
Well,
it.
thank you everyone for all of your hard work. For a committee that never met, I know that we're meeting and getting a lot done, and I really appreciate it. And I'm impressed with your level of organization and your commitment and your efforts. So thank you for continuing to do that. And I think that's it. I think we can adjourn.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.